I knew shit was fucked when I walked into the server room and realized the hum of the cooling fan sounded less like a purr and more like a dying asthmatic wheezing through a straw. That room was my sanctuary, my church of the oscillating fan, my fortress of solitude where I kept the financial heart of this god-forsaken company beating. They called me a senior systems analyst, which is corporate speak for the only person who knows where the bodies are buried and which wires to jiggle so 10,000 people don't riot. For 7 years, I've been the duct tape holding this titanic disaster together. I'm not your typical IT crowd. I don't own a Tesla. I don't drink kombucha, and I sure as hell don't microdose mushrooms to optimize my flow state. I'm a mechanic. My hands just happen to be covered in digital grease instead of 10W30. I run the settlement and distributions backend for Apex Ledger Group, a fintech giant that processes everything from microloans to billion-dollar private equity capital calls across the Southwest. If I call in sick, the portfolio managers in Dallas don't get their commission payouts. And when portfolio managers don't get their payouts, they start leaking trade secrets to the SEC. So, I'm sitting there staring at a command line that's blinking at me like an insolent teenager, nursing a cup of cartel roasting company black coffee that tastes like battery acid and regret. I just finished patching a memory leak that threatened to swallow the entire Southwest region's capital gains withholdings. It was a masterpiece of ugly code, a patch job that looked like a screen door on a submarine, but it held. It always held. Hey, look. Before I get into how these suit-wearing vultures tried to turn my life into a grim country song, do me a solid. Smash that subscribe button and give this a like. It helps the algorithm know that you enjoy watching corporate train wrecks in slow motion. We're about to drive off a cliff, so buckle up. Okay, back to the grime. You have to understand the system. Management thinks it's this sleek, cloud-based AI marvel because that's what the sales brochure said when they bought the shell of it back in 2015. In reality, it's 3 raccoons in a trench coat fighting over a half-eaten bagel. It's a legacy SQL database from the Bush administration held together by my custom scripts, prayers, and pure spite. I call it the Beast. Every 2 weeks, the Beast wakes up hungry. It demands data from 42 different trade execution platforms, half of which haven't been updated since the iPhone 4 came out. It has to calculate commission multipliers for independent brokers in Vegas, profit-sharing structures for quant analysts in Austin, and performance bonuses for the floor traders in Manhattan. If a single decimal point is out of place, the Beast chokes. And when the Beast chokes, people miss rent. My job wasn't just running software, it was wrestling a muddy pig in the dark. I knew that the compliance module in Scottsdale had a glitch where it would randomly delete surnames starting with MC if the server load went above 80%. I knew that the brokerage branch in Salt Lake City uploaded their trade ledgers in a TXT format that was technically corrupt, but I wrote a parser to strip the garbage out at 3 a.m. every alternating Tuesday. Nobody told me to do that. Nobody paid me extra for that. I did it because I have this sickness called pride in my work, even if the work is shoveling digital manure. The office outside my server room was a different world. It was a sterilized purgatory of beige cubicles and fake smiles. You know the type. People walking around with $12 salads talking about synergy and circling back while I'm in the back room, practically holding 2 live wires together with my teeth. They looked at me like I was part of the furniture, a slightly dusty, grumpy lamp that occasionally emitted profanity. Morning, Sloan, the HR director, Victoria Davenport, would chirp as she walked by. Victoria smelled like expired vanilla body spray and desperation. Distributions looking good for Friday? Unless the server catches fire or God strikes me down, Victoria, I'd grunt, not looking up from my monitors. Great. You're such a rock. A rock? Yeah. Something you step on, something you ignore until you trip over it. She didn't know that 3 days ago, a ransomware bot tried to tickle our firewall, and I spent 6 hours manually rerouting port traffic while they were all at a team-building waffle breakfast. They ate waffles. I ate stress and Advil, but I like the stability. I'm 45, I've got a mortgage on a little place in Tempe that needs a new roof, a cat named Buster who hates men, and a toleration for solitude. I didn't need their praise. I just needed the paycheck and the satisfaction of knowing I was the smartest person in the room, even if no one else knew it. Then came the rumors. You know how it starts. The water cooler talk shifts, the vibe changes, it smells like ozone before a monsoon. We got acquired or merged or strategically aligned, whatever buzzword they used to justify the incoming bloodbath. A new vice president of operations was coming in from corporate HQ. I looked him up on LinkedIn. His profile picture was one of those black and white shots where he's staring off into the middle distance, looking like he's pondering the solution to world hunger, but really he's just thinking about his golf handicap. His bio was full of words like disruptor, change agent, and visionary. I hate visionaries. Visionaries are just guys who hallucinate problems that don't exist so they can sell you solutions you don't need. I was sitting in my cave running the pre-settlement validation for the upcoming quarterly distribution cycle, a process that involves scanning 10,000 broker accounts for errors when I got the calendar invite. Subject: operational sync/future state. Location: VP office. Attendees: Sloan Vance, Preston Blake. Preston? Who the hell was Preston? I felt a twitch in my left eye, the kind of twitch you get when you see a storm cloud over Camelback Mountain that's shaped like a middle finger. I saved my work. I backed up the scripts to my local drive, a habit born of paranoia and experience. I grabbed my faded lanyard, patted the server rack affectionately like you'd pat a good hunting dog, and marched out into the fluorescent nightmare of the open plan office. The air felt thin. People were typing too quietly. They knew the office ecosystem is like the jungle. When the lion is hunting, the monkeys shut the hell up. I walked past Victoria's desk. She wouldn't make eye contact. She was aggressively typing an email, staring at her screen with the intensity of a bomb disposal expert. Traitor, I whispered under my breath. I reached the VP's office. Glass walls, frosted just enough to obscure the incompetence happening inside. I knocked on the glass. "Come in," a voice boomed. It sounded like it was practiced in a mirror. I opened the door and stepped on a plush carpet that probably cost more than my car. Sitting behind the mahogany desk was Preston, the visionary. He looked like a Ken doll that had been left in the microwave, shiny, plastic, and slightly melting with age. And sitting on the leather couch, tapping on an iPad, was a kid. He couldn't have been more than 24. He was wearing a vest, one of those puffy Patagonia fleece vests that scream, "My dad sued the college to get me in." He had hair that defied gravity and a smirk that defied physics. "Sloan, sit, sit." Preston gestured to a chair that was significantly lower than his own. Power move. Classic. I sat. "What can I do for you, Preston?" I've got the pre-settlement running, so I have about 20 minutes before I need to manually override the SEC regulatory fee tables. Preston chuckled. It was a dry, rattling sound. "Always in the weeds, huh, Sloan?" "That's what we love about you. The grit. It's not grit, it's maintenance," I said flatly. "The system is old, Preston. It needs a babysitter." Right. The system. Preston leaned back, tenting his fingers. "That's actually what we wanted to talk about. This is Bryce." The kid on the couch looked up. "Sup," he said. "Bryce is he's our new operational efficiency consultant," Preston corrected himself quickly. "Fresh out of his MBA program, top of his class. Online or accredited?" I asked. I couldn't help it. The filter between my brain and my mouth had eroded years ago. Preston's smile tightened. "Bryce has been reviewing our workflow. He's identified some redundancies." "Redundancies," I repeated. The word hung in the air like a fart in an elevator. "Yeah," Bryce piped up, standing up and walking over. He didn't walk. He sauntered. "So I've been looking at what you do, the scripts, the SQL patches. It's all very 1999. It's 2026 and it works," I said, my grip on the chair armrest tightening. "It settles the accounts of 10,000 brokers on time every time." "But it's manual," Bryce said, waving his hand dismissively. "It's high friction. I've built a model that streamlines the whole ingestion process." "A model?" I asked. "You built a settlement distribution engine in 2 weeks?" "Not an engine." Bryce smirked. "I use the existing data export feeds. I can run the whole allocation matrix in Excel." I stared at him. I stared at him for a long, long time. The silence stretched until it snapped. "Excel?" I said softly. "You're going to run a multi-tiered FINRA-compliant variable fee distribution for 10,000 broker accounts in a spreadsheet with macros?" Bryce nodded, as if that explained everything. "It's super agile." I looked at Preston. "Is this a joke? Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher popping out of that fern?" Preston's face went hard. "We're pivoting to a lean methodology, Sloan. We need to modernize your role. The legacy maintenance is just not in the budget for the next quarter. We're handing the process over to Bryce effective immediately." The words hit me like a bag of wet cement. Fired. Replaced by a spreadsheet and a haircut. You're firing me, I stated. We're letting you explore new opportunities, Preston corrected. Today is your last day. HR has your packet. I looked at Bryce. He was already bored, scrolling on his phone. He had no idea. He thought settlement allocation was just math. He didn't know it was warfare. The distribution cycle clears on Friday, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Today is Tuesday. If you switch over now, we'll be fine, Bryce interrupted. My macros are solid. I stood up. My knees popped. I felt a strange sensation washing over me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was the cold, dark liberation of a woman who just watched a man pull the pin on a grenade and stick it in his own pocket. Okay, I said. Okay, Preston. Okay, Bryce, please leave your badge at the desk, Preston said, already looking at his computer. I turned to the door. One thing. What? Preston sighed. When the beast gets hungry, I said, looking Bryce dead in the eyes, don't feed it after midnight. What? Bryce crinkled his nose. You'll figure it out. I smiled. It was a shark smile. Good luck on settlement day. I walked out. The air in the hallway felt different now. It didn't smell like ozone anymore. It smelled like gasoline. And I was the one walking away with the only lighter. The walk from the VP's office back to my desk felt like a funeral procession for common sense. My heels clicked on the linoleum. Click, clack, click, clack. A metronome counting down to their destruction. I passed the hang in there cat poster in the break room. The cat looked like it wanted to let go. I knew the feeling, Kitty. I knew the feeling. My desk was an island of controlled chaos in a sea of corporate sterility. Dual monitors, a mechanical keyboard that sounded like gunfire, and a stack of sticky notes that contained the Rosetta Stone of this company's financial survival. Error 4004 on Gateway 7 equals reboot the secondary cache manually. Julian in accounting is a liar. Verify his inputs. I grabbed a cardboard box. I didn't pack much. A framed photo of Buster the cat, my lucky screwdriver set, a stash of emergency ibuprofen, my mug that said I'm here because you broke it. Bryce, the Nepo baby prince of spreadsheets, hovered behind me. He was literally hovering, standing on his toes, trying to peek at my monitors before I shut them down. So, he said, popping a piece of gum, if you could just forward me any relevant passwords for the handover. I stopped packing. I turned slowly. I looked at this kid who thought pivot tables were a personality trait. Relevant passwords. I repeated. Yeah. Admin access. Database keys. The usual. It's in the documentation. I lied. There was no documentation. The documentation was a Word document from 2009 that just said good luck and a picture of a burning building. But I wasn't going to tell him that. Cool. Bryce nodded, clearly not listening. I'm going to migrate the data tonight. My Excel model is going to blow Preston's mind. It's got a dashboard with like traffic lights. Red for stop, green for pay. Traffic lights, I deadpanned. Revolutionary, I know, right? Visualizing the cash flow, that's the future. He was so confident. It was the confidence of a toddler running toward a swimming pool holding a toaster. He honestly believed that a complex relational database with 1 million dependencies could be replaced by VLOOKUP and conditional formatting. It was almost cute in a horrific Titanic sinking sort of way. Bryce, I said, leaning in close. I smelled his cologne. Something aquatic and overpriced, like bottled disappointment. Do you know what a race condition is? Is that like diversity hiring? He asked, looking confused. No, Bryce. It's when two threads try to write to the same memory location at the same time. The system panics. It usually results in zeroing out the transaction. Excel doesn't have threads, he scoffed. It has cells. Exactly, I whispered. I hit the power button on my tower. The fan spun down. The hum died. The silence was deafening. That computer had been running for 400 days straight. Killing it felt like smothering a friend with a pillow. Well, I said, hoisting my box, it's all yours, Bryce. The keys to the kingdom. Thanks, Sloan. No hard feelings, right? Just business. Just business, I echoed. I walked toward the elevator. Heads popped up from cubicles like prairie dogs sensing a predator. They watched me go. Victoria from HR stood in the hallway holding a file folder like a shield. Sloan, she said, her voice trembling slightly. We need your badge, and you need to sign the NDA and the severance agreement. I looked at the paperwork. Standard severance, 2 weeks plus a month if you sign a non-disparagement clause. I laughed. It was a bark of a laugh, harsh and jagged. I don't need to disparage you, Victoria. Reality is going to do that for me. Give me the pen. I signed, slapped the badge on her clipboard. It made a loud thwack that made her flinch. Escort her out. Preston's voice came from down the hall. He wasn't even looking at me. He was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, probably imagining he was Steve Jobs. Security was waiting. It was Marcus, a guy I'd smoked cigarettes with on the loading dock for 5 years. He looked embarrassed. "Sorry, Sloan," Marcus muttered, taking my elbow gently. "Orders." "It's okay, Marcus," I said. "Do me a favor, anything. Transfer your 401k match early on Friday, like the minute the market opens." Marcus frowned. "Why?" "Just trust me. Before noon, Marcus. Before noon." We walked through the lobby, the glass doors slid open, and the dry Phoenix heat hit me. It was thick and heavy, smelling of baking asphalt on Camelback Road and exhaust. I walked to my 2012 truck that I kept running with the same stubbornness I applied to the settlement server. I tossed my box in the passenger seat, climbed in, cranked the engine, and let the AC blast me in the face. I lit a Marlboro Red. The first drag tasted like freedom. The second drag tasted like revenge. I sat there for a minute watching the building. It was a giant glass box full of people who thought they were important. They thought the lights stayed on because of electricity. They thought the distributions cleared because of banks. They didn't know it was all held together by the sweat and anxiety of people like me. They had just fired the janitor. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't save, but I knew was Bryce's. "Hey S, just loaded the master CSV into the sheet. It's lagging a bit. Is there a trick to make it faster?" I stared at the screen, lagging a bit. He probably just tried to load 10,000 rows of historical ledger data into a pivot table on a laptop with 8 gigs of RAM. I didn't reply. I took another drag of my cigarette, exhaled a plume of gray smoke against the windshield, and put the truck in gear. "Create a ticket," I said to the empty cab. I drove home. I stopped at the liquor store on the way, not for the cheap stuff. I bought a bottle of good bourbon, the kind you drink when you're celebrating a birth or a death. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I put on my sweatpants, the ones with the bleach stain on the knee, and I sat on my patio. I poured a glass. I watched the sun go down over the neighbor's unkempt lawn. The silence in my head was beautiful. For 7 years, my brain had been a constant ticker tape of deadlines, error codes, and compliance updates. Now, nothing, just the crickets and the ice melting in my glass. But I knew what was happening back at the office. I could feel it. The electrons were colliding. Bryce was probably clicking refresh on his spreadsheet, wondering why the wheel was spinning. He didn't know that the raw ledger data from the high-frequency trading terminals came with a hidden header row that corrupted Excel parsing, unless you stripped it with a Python script. He'd find out. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but Friday was coming. Friday is Judgment Day. I took a sip of bourbon. It burned warm and lovely. "My son has an MBA," I mocked, speaking to the cat who had wandered out to join me. "Buster, do you have an MBA?" Buster licked his butt. "Exactly," I said. "You're overqualified." Wednesday morning broke with the kind of aggressive sunshine that makes a hangover feel like a personal attack from God. But I wasn't hungover. I was clear, crystal clear. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. out of habit, reached for my phone to check the server logs, and then stopped. My hand hovered over the nightstand. Not my monkeys, not my circus. I rolled over, pulled the duvet up, and slept until 10 o'clock. It was the most rebellious thing I've done since I smoked weed behind the bleachers in 1996. By noon, I was on my couch watching a documentary about deep-sea squids eating dry cereal out of the box. My phone was on the coffee table face down. I'd set it to silent, but I could hear the vibration against the wood. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It started slow. A few texts from work friends. "Where are you?" "Victoria said you left, bro. Bryce is running around sweating through his vest. What did you do?" I didn't answer. I just watched the giant squid fight a sperm whale. It was a metaphor. I was the squid. Or maybe the whale. Either way, someone was getting eaten in the dark. I opened my laptop, my personal laptop, a beat-up ThinkPad running Linux, not the corporate spyware garbage they gave me. I couldn't access the internal servers anymore. Obviously, my credentials had probably been revoked before I hit the parking lot. But here's the thing about the beast. It connects to outside vendors, the DTCC clearinghouse, the compliance portal, the federal SEC gateways. I couldn't log in, but I could see the traffic requests on the public-facing APs if I knew where to look. And I knew where to look because I built the damn gateways. It was quiet. Too quiet. Usually on a Wednesday before a major settlement, the system is screaming. It's pinging the clearinghouse for verification tokens. It's batch processing the capital gains withholdings. Today, flatline. He hasn't even initiated the handshake, I muttered to myself, a piece of cornflake falling onto my shirt. He thinks he can do it all in one batch on Friday. Bryce, oh Bryce, you sweet summer child. You don't batch process 10,000 capital distributions on the day of. The DTCC clearinghouse needs 48 hours to scrub for fraud. If you don't send the preliminary ledger file by Thursday noon, the capital doesn't move until Monday. He was treating private equity distributions like Venmo. He thought he could just hit send and instant transfer millions of dollars. My phone buzzed again. A long one, a call. Caller ID unknown number. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a voicemail notification popped up. I debated listening to it. Curiosity is a hell of a drug. I cracked a local IPA. It was 1 p.m. Judge me all you want. I hit play. Hi Sloan, it's Bryce. Look, I know you're probably taking some personal time, but I'm looking at the commission threshold for the California brokers. The spreadsheet keeps returning a #ref error. I think the formula is broken. If you could just text me the logic you used, that would be super chill. Thanks. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my beer. #ref error. California brokers didn't use standard commissions. They had a rolling threshold based on state FINRA legislation from 2012. It wasn't a formula. It was a stored procedure in the SQL database that cross-referenced Bloomberg terminal logs with execution timestamps. Bryce was trying to calculate it in a cell. He was trying to fit an elephant into a carry-on bag. I didn't text him back. Thursday arrived. The tension in my living room was palpable. Even though I was the only one there, I knew the timeline. Thursday, 10 a.m., the deadline for the finalized settlement allocation matrix to be submitted to the controller for approval. Thursday, 12 p.m., the hard cutoff for the DTCC clearinghouse transmission. At 10:15 a.m., my phone started having a seizure. Buzz, 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 buzz. Text from the office survivors group chat, which I was technically still in. Guys, why is the VP screaming in the conference room? Bryce looks like he's going to cry. Settlements aren't locked yet. I have a mortgage due on the 1st. I poured another coffee. I added a shot of whiskey. Irish coffee. It's a health drink. At 11:30 a.m., I got a text from Victoria. Sloan, please pick up. We have a question about the legacy system. It's urgent. I stared at the word legacy. That was the word they used to fire me. Legacy. Outdated, redundant. Now the legacy is urgent, I whispered. I typed a reply. My thumb hovered over the send button. Have you tried asking Excel? No. Too petty. I deleted it. Silence was louder. 12 p.m. came and went. The deadline passed. The DTCC window was closed. I knew what that meant. Even if they fixed it right now, even if Jesus himself came down and debugged the spreadsheet, the capital distributions wouldn't hit on Friday morning. The electronic bridge was up. The drawbridge was raised. The capital was stuck. I imagined the scene. Realization dawning on them. The panic, the frantic calls to the clearinghouse begging for an exception. The feds telling them, sorry, protocol is protocol. Bryce standing there in his fleece vest realizing that agile methodology doesn't work on federal banking regulations. I felt a pang of guilt, not for Bryce, not for Preston, but for the guys on the floor, for Marcus, for the single moms in client services. They were going to wake up tomorrow with empty accounts. Then I remembered the meeting. Your role is redundant. My son has an MBA. If I fixed it now, they'd never learn. They'd think Bryce pulled a miracle. They'd think I was just being dramatic. No, the lesson had to be complete. The house had to burn down so they would understand why they needed a fire extinguisher. I went to the kitchen and started making a sandwich. Ham and cheese, extra mustard. As I spread the mustard, I hummed a little tune. Closing time. My phone rang again. It was Preston's executive assistant. I silenced it. I took a bite of my sandwich. It tasted like justice. Spicy yellow justice. Excel can't save you now, boys. You're in the deep end, and you fired the lifeguard. By Thursday afternoon, the tremors had started. It wasn't the big quake yet. That was reserved for Friday morning, but the plates were shifting. You see, Bryce hadn't just missed the DTCC deadline. In his infinite wisdom, In his attempt to streamline the data, he had evidently tried to manually upload some files to the broker portal so people could at least see their settlement statements. A noble effort, a stupid, catastrophic effort. I got a screenshot forwarded to me from a friend on the trading floor, Deacon. Yo, Sloan, why does my settlement statement say I traded 4,000 blocks this week and my net payout is negative $12,000? Did I rob the company? I zoomed in on the image. Bryce had mixed up the columns. He had mapped the trader ID column to the block volume column. I laughed until I wheezed. I sounded like a pack of Marlboros trying to start a lawnmower. It was a classic shift-left error. He deleted a column in Excel and everything shifted over. Now the system thought Deacon, trader ID number 412. Had executed 4,120 massive trades, and because the capital gains withholding formula went into a panic attack at that number, it withheld 150% of his soul. Then came the email blast. Someone leaked it to me, from Preston Blake, VP Operations to all staff. Subject: Settlement System Update. Minor display glitch. Team. You may notice some anomalies on your settlement statements in the portal today. We are transitioning to a modern high-efficiency ledger architecture. This is a display error only and does not reflect your actual distribution. We are working through some teething issues with the legacy data migration. Thanks for your patience as we innovate. Innovate. He used the word innovate to describe formatting a CSV file like a toddler finger painting with feces. Legacy data migration. I scoffed at my phone. You mean copy-paste? The gaslighting was incredible. They were blaming the legacy data. They were blaming my work. It wasn't that the new driver was drunk. It was that the old road was too curvy. I started getting LinkedIn notifications. Recruiters. Hey, Sloan, heard you're on the market. We need a COBOL expert. Sloan, are you available for contract work? We have a burning server. News travels fast in IT. The systems admins at other financial firms talk. They sniff out blood in the water. They knew if a massive settlement run fails at a major fintech firm, the vibrations travel through the network. I ignored them. I wasn't ready to work. I was busy watching the world burn. Thursday night was the calmest night of my life. Usually, Thursday night is the vigil. I stay up until 2 a.m. monitoring the batch processes, watching the green text scroll, waiting for the success flag. Tonight, I took a bubble bath. I don't even like bubble baths. I feel like I'm marinating in my own dirt, but I did it because I could. I poured a glass of wine, put on some Enya, Don't Judge Me, and soaked. My phone was on the toilet lid, face up this time. I wanted to see the desperation. 8:45 p.m. Text from Bryce. S. Seriously, the fee tables for the SEC aren't calculating compliance tax. Is there a hidden sheet? I unhid all rows, but I can't find the regulatory codes. 9:12 p.m. Text from Victoria HR. Sloan, we might need to contract you for a few hours. Consultation rate. Can we talk? 10:30 p.m. Missed call from Preston. No voicemail. He was too proud to leave a voicemail. I sank lower into the bubbles. SEC compliance codes aren't in the sheet, Bryce, I whispered to the steam. They're called via an API from the federal database, which requires an encrypted handshake key that is stored on a secure USB drive in my desk drawer. The one you probably threw in the trash. That key rotated every 30 days. It had rotated yesterday. Without that key, we're calculating compliance fees based on 0%. That's a federal crime. That's SEC agents with windbreakers territory. They weren't just incompetent. They were accidentally defrauding the federal government. I got out of the tub, dried off, and put on my favorite oversized t-shirt, the one with a picture of Danny DeVito eating a ham sandwich. It felt appropriate. I checked the weather for tomorrow. Dust storm warning. Perfect. I went to bed. I slept like a baby. A baby who knows that the adults have lost the keys to the house and left the oven on. Tomorrow, 10,000 brokers wake up to empty bank accounts. Tomorrow, the innovation hits the fan. Friday morning, the day the eagle is supposed to shit. But today, the eagle was constipated. I woke up at 7 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating so hard it was slowly walking across the nightstand. It wasn't just texts anymore. It was social media. I opened Facebook. My feed, usually full of Minions memes from my aunt and photos of people's ugly dinners, was a wall of fire. Brokerage account empty, WTF at Apex Ledger Group. My mortgage is due today. Where is my money? Anyone else's distributions not hit? I'm at the gas station and my card declined. The floor brokers were mobilizing. The syndicate rep, a guy named Jax who has hands the size of honey hams, posted a video standing in front of the downtown trading floor. No pay, no play, Jax growled into the camera. Terminals ain't lighting up until the capital hits. This is breach of contract. A mass walkout in less than 8 hours since the distributions failed. I turned on the local Phoenix news while I made coffee, and there it was, a ticker at the bottom of the screen. Fintech giant Apex Ledger Group faces settlement glitch. Brokers threaten walkout. Glitch. They were still calling it a glitch. A glitch is when your video game freezes. This was systemic organ failure. My phone rang. It was Marcus from security. I picked up. Sloan. His voice was hushed. It's a war zone here. Did you transfer your funds, Marcus? Yeah, Tuesday. Like you said, I'm the only guard who isn't threatening to quit. Listen, Preston is screaming at the IT director. They're looking for the backups. Good luck, I said, sipping my coffee. They're saying the backups are corrupt. They're saying you sabotaged them. My grip on the mug tightened. I didn't sabotage shit, Marcus. The backups are encrypted. The decryption key is in a script that runs automatically when I log in with my admin credentials. Credentials they deleted. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a failsafe. Dead man's switch. If I get hacked, the attacker can't read the backups. If I get fired, well, they're talking about legal, Sloan. They're saying they're going to sue you for malicious destruction of data. Let them try, I said. Employment contract says I'm responsible for system maintenance, not post-termination consulting, and the data isn't destroyed. It's just locked in a box, and they threw away the key. Bryce is crying, Marcus added, like actual tears. In the break room. Good. Salt water is good for the complexion. I hung up. The legal threat annoyed me. It was the last refuge of the incompetent. We broke it, so we'll sue you for not being here to fix it. I walked over to my bookshelf. I pulled down a thick binder. Standard Operating Procedures 2018. I had written it years ago. It was outdated, sure, but it had the core architecture diagrams. I flipped through it. I could fix this. I could walk in there, type 6 lines of code, restore the SQL state from Tuesday, and force push the DTCC file. The clearinghouse would charge a massive rush fee, but people would get their capital by Saturday morning. But why should I? They replaced me with a spreadsheet. They insulted my life's work. They endangered the livelihoods of 10,000 families because they wanted to save a senior salary and pay a 24-year-old MBA peanuts. If I saved them now, they'd learn nothing. They'd say, see, it was just a hiccup. Bryce would keep his job, Preston would get his bonus. No, they needed to feel the heat. They needed to smell the burning plastic. I got an email on my personal account, not from Preston, from the legal department. Subject: immediate demand for access. Ms. Vance, it has come to our attention that you have withheld critical encryption keys. We demand immediate release of said keys or we will seek injunctive relief. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, a guy named Donovan. No, really, who operates out of a strip mall next to a vape shop on Thomas Road. Donovan is a pit bull in a cheap suit. He lives for this. I texted Donovan. Sick 'em. I went to the fridge. I was out of creamer. Guess I have to go to the store. I told the cat. I drove to the grocery store. I took my time. I walked down the aisles squeezing avocados. I saw a woman in a company polo, one of our client service reps, staring at a package of diapers. She put them back on the shelf. My heart broke. That was real. That was the collateral damage of Preston's ego. I walked up to her. I didn't know her name. Hey, I said. Here. I handed her a $50 bill. What? No, I can't, she stammered. Take it, I said. Company bonus. The system is messed up. It'll be fixed soon. You work there? She asked, looking at my faded jeans and band t-shirt. Used to, I said. I'm the one they fired so they could afford the incompetence. She took the money. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, my voice hard. Blame Bryce. I left the store. My anger was cold now. It had crystallized into something sharp. I wasn't just going to wait for them to call. I was going to make them beg. By 2 p.m. on Friday, the company wasn't a business anymore. It was a crime scene. The news had upgraded the story from glitch to crisis. a news helicopter was circling the main Apex Ledger Tower in downtown Phoenix. Footage showed a line of floor brokers packed across the plaza, blocking anyone from entering. The brokers were sitting on the concrete planters, eating sandwiches, holding signs that said cash or crash. It was beautiful. It was the French Revolution with Armani ties. Inside the glass box of the headquarters, things were allegedly devolving into Lord of the Flies. Marcus, my inside man, was live texting me the play-by-play. Preston just threw a stapler at the wall. Legal is screaming that they can't get a judge to sign the injunction on a Friday afternoon. IT tried to restore from a backup tape from 2022 and crashed the internal Exchange server. Now nobody has email. The spreadsheet. The glorious, cursed spreadsheet. Apparently, Bryce had tried to fix it one last time. He tried to run a macro to reverse the fee errors, but because the file was now 500 megabytes of bloated XML garbage, it froze his laptop. He force quit. The file corrupted. Not just the data, the file itself. Your old master Final VAI 3 Real XLSX was now a 0 kilobyte ghost. He had no backup because the cloud was supposed to save it, but he hadn't synced it. The entire settlement record for the fiscal period was gone, vaporized. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Preston, it wasn't Victoria, it was the CEO, Garrison Wells. I'd met him once 5 years ago at a Christmas party. He asked me to fix the Wi-Fi on his phone. That was the extent of our relationship. I let it ring, 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 ring. I stared at the name Garrison Wells. I let it go to voicemail. Power move. You don't pick up the first time. You let them sweat. You let them wonder if you're dead or in Mexico or just sitting on your couch laughing at them. I waited 5 minutes. Then I listened to the voicemail. Ms. Vance, this is Garrison Wells. We have a situation. I've been briefed on the transition issues. Need to resolve this today. Name your terms. Please call me back. Transition issues, resolve. Name your terms. There it was, the white flag. But I wasn't done. They needed to understand that this wasn't a negotiation about money, this was an exorcism. I didn't call him back. Instead, I poured another cup of coffee and opened my laptop. I logged into my encrypted personal cloud. I pulled up the Doomsday script. It was a simple script. I wrote it 3 years ago when they denied my raise. It doesn't destroy data. It just verifies it. It runs a checksum on the entire database structure and rebuilds the indexes. It's the digital equivalent of untangling a ball of yarn, but only I knew the password to the tunnel. At 3:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked out the peephole. It was a courier holding a thick envelope. I opened the door. Delivery for Sloan Vance. That's me. He handed me the envelope. Urgent. Sign here. I signed. I tore it open. It was a contract, a consulting agreement. Rate, $500 per hour. Duration, indefinite. Scope, settlement system restoration. It was an insult. $500 an hour. That's what they pay the lawyers to threaten me. They thought they could buy me off with pocket change. I walked to my kitchen, grabbed a Sharpie, and wrote across the front page in big black letters. No. I took a picture of it. I texted it to Preston. 1 minute later, Preston called. I answered. Sloan. He sounded breathless, like he'd been running or crying. Hello, Preston. We sent the contract. Did you see it? $500 an hour. That's double your old rate. I don't have an old rate, Preston. I'm unemployed. I'm a private citizen enjoying her Friday. Sloan, please. The brokers aren't trading. The stock is down 4% in 2 hours. The board is eating me alive. And Bryce? I asked. How's the Excel wizard? Bryce is relieved of his duties, Preston said, his voice tight. Relieved or fired? He stepped aside. Not good enough, I said, and neither is the money. What do you want? Preston screamed. It was a raw, primal sound. Just tell me what you want. I want the CEO, I said on speaker. In 5 minutes, he's in a meeting with the SEC. Pull him out, or I go back to watching Shark Tank. I hung up. I lit a cigarette. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. This was it. The moment where the mechanic tells the race car driver that the engine doesn't start without the key, and she swallowed the key. I waited. The clock ticked. 3:45 p.m., 3:50 p.m. The phone rang. Garrison Wells. I slid the icon to answer. This is Sloan. Miss Vance. The CEO's voice was smooth, practiced, but I could hear the tightness in his jaw from 3 miles away. I'm on with Preston and Victoria from legal. Hi, Garrison, I said. I didn't call him Mr. Wells. We were peers now. Actually, no, I was above him. I was the supplier, and he was the desperate junkie. We need the settlement distributions back online immediately. We understand there were errors in the transition to the new process. You mean when you fired me and let a toddler play with a loaded gun? I asked, examining my fingernails. Silence on the line, then a throat clearing. I acknowledged that the implementation of the manual spreadsheet model was premature. Premature. It was malpractice. Garrison, you violated federal financial laws, regulatory codes in 12 states, and the trust of every person who brokers a trade for you. You didn't just break the software, you broke the company. We are prepared to offer you a significant retainer to fix it, Garrison said, rushing past the morality lecture. Name your price. I took a drag of my cigarette. You sent me a contract for $500 an hour. That was cute. What is your number? $25,000, I said. A month? Garrison asked. For this weekend, I corrected. Paid up front. Wire transfer before I touch a keyboard. Choking sounds from the other end. That's extortion, Victoria squeaked. No, Victoria. Extortion is threatening to sue a fired employee for your own incompetence. This is consulting. Specialized emergency consulting. Hazard pay. Fine. Garrison said immediately. Done. $25,000 wired today. I'm not finished, I said. What else? Garrison sounded tired. I want a new contract. 1 year guaranteed, triple my previous salary, and I report directly to the CIO, not operations. I'm done with Preston. Done, Garrison said. Preston can restructure. And one more thing. Yes, I want a written apology from Preston and Bryce. Sent to the entire company, admitting that the delay was caused by management error and the removal of critical IT personnel, and I want it posted on the intranet. Sloan, we can't... Preston started. Shut up, Preston, Garrison snapped. We'll do it. Good, I said. Send the wire, send the contract. When the money hits my account, I'll start the car. How long will it take to fix? Garrison asked. If Bryce hasn't deleted the master log 6 hours, if he has 12, he might have deleted some things, Preston mumbled. 12 hours then. Plus the clearinghouse processing time. I can get the file to the Fed by Saturday morning. People get paid Monday. Monday, Garrison exhaled. Okay, Monday's acceptable. It prevents the lawsuit. Pleasure doing business with you, I said. I hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone. $25,000 for a weekend. Triple salary, the utter humiliation of my enemies. I should have felt elated. I should have been dancing on the coffee table. But mostly, I just felt tired. It shouldn't have come to this. It shouldn't take a disaster for people to respect the person who keeps the lights on. I looked at my computer. The doomsday script was waiting. Ding. My banking app notification. Incoming wire transfer, $25,000. I stood up. I went to the bathroom and washed my face. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a woman who had just survived a war. Dark circles, messy hair, cigarette ash on my shirt. Time to go to work. I told my reflection. I put on a clean shirt. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my lucky screwdriver. I walked out to the truck. The air smelled of rain. The monsoon was breaking. I drove back to the office. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the baking blacktop of the I-10. The picket line was still there. The brokers saw my truck. Some of them recognized me. Jax must have told them. They parted ways. One guy, a massive bearded dude in a tailored suit holding a sign that said, "Where's my commission?" gave me a thumbs up. I drove through the gates. I parked in the VP's spot because why the hell not? I walked into the lobby. Marcus was there. He grinned. "Welcome back, Carter," he said. "Marcus," I nodded. "Is the coffee fresh? Made a new pot just for you." I took the elevator up. The doors opened. The office was quiet now. Most of the staff had fled. The lights in the conference room were on. I walked in. Preston was sitting at the head of the table, head in his hands. Bryce was in the corner, staring at the floor. Garrison, the CEO, was standing by the window. They all looked up. I didn't say hello. I didn't smile. I walked to the server room door, unlocked it with the key they had to give me back, and stepped inside. The hum was there, the fans, the heat. "Hello, Beast," I whispered. "Did you miss me?" The server room smelled like ozone and stale fear. Bryce's cologne still lingered in the air, a phantom scent of failure. I sat down at my terminal. My chair was still adjusted to my height, Thank God, and cracked my knuckles. I pulled up the logs. It was a crime scene. Bryce hadn't just used Excel, he had tried to force feed the SQL database with raw text commands he probably found on a Reddit thread titled How to SQL for Beginners. It locked the transaction ledgers. The system wasn't dead. It was in a coma protecting itself from his stupidity. I began to type, select star from settlement _ staging where status equals locked. 10,000 rows returned. Jesus, I muttered. He had manually locked every single trader record. I started the purge. I wrote a script to kill the hung processes. It was rhythmic. Click, clack, click. The mechanical keyboard sang the song of redemption. The door behind me opened. I didn't turn around. Sloan. It was Bryce. His voice was small. Don't, I said. Don't speak. Don't breathe too loud. You are a ghost, Bryce. You don't exist. I wanted to say the tutorial said that. I spun my chair around. The look on my face must have been terrifying because he took a step back. The tutorial? I asked, my voice low. You tried to run $1 billion settlement ledger based on a YouTube tutorial. It worked on the sample data, he whispered. Sample data is a garden hose, Bryce. Production data is a fire hose. You tried to drink from the fire hose and you drowned us all. I turned back to the screen. Get out of my church. He left. I worked. Hour 1, hour 2. I restored the SEC regulatory fee tables from the backup I kept on my encrypted partition. I reran the logic checks. Green text started to flow across the screen. Verifying trader ID 0001. Okay. Verifying trader ID 0002. Okay. It was beautiful. It was the digital heartbeat returning. At hour 4, Preston came in. He brought me a coffee, a peace offering. How's it looking? He asked, trying to sound authoritative but failing. The patient will live, I said, not taking the coffee. But she's going to have a limp. Meaning? Meaning I have to manually reconcile the trading volume differentials for the last 3 days. Bryce's spreadsheet erased the high-frequency execution flags. I have to rebuild them based on the Bloomberg terminal logs. Can you do it? I'm Sloan, I said. I can do anything except tolerate fools. Yes, I can do it. Garrison is asking for an ETA. Tell Garrison I'll have the DTCC file ready by 2 a.m. He needs to wake up the clearinghouse president. Preston nodded. He looked older than he did on Tuesday. Sloan, Save it, Preston. Read the apology letter you're going to write. Make sure you spell incompetence correctly. He walked away. I put my headphones on. AC/DC highway to hell. I entered the flow state. The code was flying now. I was stitching the wounds, bypassing the corrupted sectors, rerouting the data streams. I felt like I was welding underwater. By 1:30 a.m., the file was ready. Ledger_export_final. Actually final. I ran the checksum. It matched. I hit the transmit button. A progress bar appeared. Connecting to DTCC Federal Reserve Gateway. Authenticating. Transmitting. I held my breath. This was the choke point if the clearinghouse rejected the handshake because the keys were out of sync. Transmission complete. Batch ID number 92810. I exhaled a long shaky breath. The capital was moving. It was flying through the fiber optic cables, bouncing off satellites, diving into servers. 10,000 broker accounts were about to get a pending deposit notification. I slumped back in my chair. My back hurt. My eyes burned. I needed a cigarette. I stood up and walked out of the server room. The conference room was empty except for Garrison. He was asleep in a chair, his tie undone. It's done, I said. He jerked awake. What? It's done. The capital is at the clearinghouse. He looked at his watch. 1:45 a.m., you beat the estimate. Under promise, over deliver, I said. That's what actual professionals do. Garrison stood up. He extended his hand. I looked at it. I didn't shake it. I'll be in on Monday to sign the new contract, I said. And to interview my new team. I want 3 junior database engineers, real ones, not MBAs. I want kids who know how to code and aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. Whatever you need, Garrison said. And Garrison, yes. Tell Bryce to update his LinkedIn. Quantitative settlement specialist might be a stretch. I turned and walked to the elevator. I walked out into the cool Phoenix night air. The downtown core was dead quiet. The brokers' protest signs were piled up by the planters. I took out my phone. I texted Marcus. Tell the syndicate boys to check their banking apps. The Eagle has landed. I got in my truck. I didn't turn the radio on. I just listened to the engine purr. I drove home. I was $25,000 richer. I had a job that paid triple. I had won. But as I pulled into my driveway, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a survivor. Monday morning felt different. The desert air was cleaner after the monsoon. The sun was brighter. Or maybe that was just the reflection off the new contract in my bag. I pulled into the Apex Ledger Group parking lot at 8:55 a.m. I didn't park in the back. I parked in the visitor spot right up front. Technically, I was a consultant now. I walked in. The receptionist, a sharp girl named Chloe, looked up. Her eyes went wide. "Sloan." "Oh my God, thank you," she whispered. "My rent check cleared this morning." "You're welcome, Chloe," I said. "Spend it all on Cartel Roasting Company espresso and avocado toast." I walked to the elevator. People were looking at me, not the way they used to, like I was furniture. They looked at me like I was a wizard who had just slain a dragon. There was fear and there was respect. Mostly fear. That works. I went to the IT floor. My old desk was still there, but it was empty. Bryce's stuff was gone. No fleece vest, no gum wrappers. I walked into the VP's office. Preston was there. He looked like he hadn't slept all weekend. "Sloan," he said, standing up. "Sit down, Preston," I said, taking the chair opposite him. "Did you post it?" He nodded. He turned his monitor around. There on the company intranet homepage was a text box. Official statement regarding distribution delay. We sincerely apologize. Management error. Underestimation of systemic compliance architecture, rapid transition failure, a restructuring of our operations department to ensure this never happens again. It didn't name Bryce explicitly, but everyone knew. "Where is he?" I asked. "Bryce has decided to pursue other opportunities," Preston said. "He's going back to school. Law school, I think." "God help the legal system," I muttered. "And me?" Preston swallowed. Garrison said, "You report to the CIO on technical infrastructure now." "That's right," I said. "No more visionary ideas, Preston. No more disrupting. From now on, if you want to change a printer cartridge, you run it by me. If you want to update Adobe Reader, you submit a ticket. You are on a leash. A very short, very digital leash." Preston swallowed hard again. "Understood." I stood up. "I'm going to my new office. I assume you cleared out the corner one." "Yes, it's ready." I walked to the corner office. It had windows. It had a view of Camelback Mountain. It had a door that closed. I sat down in the leather chair. It was comfortable. I opened my laptop. The beast was purring, all systems green. I took a sip of my coffee. This is the thing about the modern world. People think it runs on money or politics or innovation. It doesn't. It runs on millions of lines of ugly spaghetti code written by tired people in dark rooms. It runs on the invisible glue that holds the crumbling financial infrastructure together. They tried to cut the glue. They thought they didn't need it. They thought they could replace the mechanic with a brochure. They learned. I checked my bank account again. The numbers were nice, but the feeling of control, that was better. I pulled up a terminal window. I typed a single command. Uptime system up, 0 days, 8 hours, 12 minutes. It was a fresh start. I leaned back, put my feet on the desk, boots and all, and lit a cigarette. "Yeah, you're not supposed to smoke inside. What are they going to do? Fire me?" I'd like to see them try. The phone on my desk rang. Settlement operations, Sloan speaking. "Hey Sloan, it's Garrison Wells. What can I do for you, Garrison? Just wanted to say thanks. And, that smell. Is something burning?" I took a long drag. "Just the bridges I burned, Garrison. Just the bridges." I hung up. I turned on my Danny DeVito ASMR playlist. I opened a new spreadsheet. Project. Total system rewrite. Estimated cost, $2 million. Lead consultant, Sloan Vance. I smiled. "Don't mess with the janitor. We have the keys to everything. And to all the Bryces out there with their Excel sheets and their vests, check your formulas, boys. The real world doesn't have an undo button. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco."